Welcome back to the Spirit, Mind and Soul podcast. Today I'm speaking with Brittany, and Brittany has a interesting job. She's a realtor, but she's also a TV host, and she's going to be talking about how that TV host job came to be because it involved her putting herself out there and overcoming feelings of fear of judgment and fear of failure, which I think are pretty common. So hopefully this helps you if you struggle with any of them. Before we move on and listen to today's episode, I just want to thank every single one of you who have been listening. Some of you since the very beginning when this podcast started, which is almost 2 years ago now. I just want to thank you for your support, for your feedback. It means a lot to me. This channel has already come so far. If you're a new listener or a first time listener, welcome. I hope you'll stick around. You can hit the subscribe button. You'll be notified when each new episode goes out. I hope you enjoy Brittany's story today and all of the other amazing women and some men as well that we have previously and that we have coming up on the Spirit, Mind and Soul podcast. For now, here's Brittany. Hi, Brittany. Thanks so much for joining us all the way from the US today on the Spirit, Mind and Soul podcast. I can't wait to get into our chat. We were talking before and we were saying there was similarities in our journey and our personal and in our transformational journey as well. So we're obviously going to talk about a big part of your life was when you were going through a divorce. And that was so transformational for you in a spiritual sense and a personal sense. Would you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So just to sort of hear what life was like for you before we're going to talk about the heavy stuff when life got really challenging for you. What were you like before, Brittany? Was life happy? Was life challenging? Just to get to know Brittany before the big transformation.
Yeah, so I grew up in a really traditional family, and I feel like I was a people pleaser a lot growing up, and I got kind of like boxed into this weird stereotype. I think probably because I'm blonde and I like fashion and all that, I'm super bubbly. So I think that kind of like stereotypes that I got as a kid from that kind of really put me in a box of like not wanting to put myself out there. So I kind of like to like stay in my comfort zone, not ruffle too many feathers, not try too hard at anything because I feel like I kind of had a target on my back as a kid. So I really kind of got in this like comfortable zone where I just was doing things that seemed, not necessarily hard, but easier and just like smooth. And I didn't want to ruffle feathers or anything just because I was a people pleaser and I came from a super traditional family. So that's kind of where I started. And then when I had kids, it was just like kind of the day-to-day thing, but I never really like honed in on what I wanted out of life and like what my potential really was, which at the time I didn't know. Like I was just, doing life every day. It wasn't absolutely miserable, but it wasn't, I wouldn't say happiness either. But I mean, again, when your kids are really little, it's like a blur. Every day is just like busy and tiring. And I mean, I loved being home with my kids, but it's different looking back at it now of like those were so many years of kind of potential that I didn't even realize I had. So it wasn't necessarily bad, but it wasn't great. I was just, in that zone doing all the things.
Yeah. And very much, would you say in a comfort zone then?
Yes, I was definitely in a comfort zone. I feel like I had like some, I don't know, rocky moments as a teenager. And it was like, I just want to stay in like a comfortable, almost like underneath my potential.
Yeah, because it's
Comfortable.
safe.
Fear of failing, fear of being judged, fear of, all the things
Yeah.
from the past. So just kind of
Yeah.
playing it safe for a while.
Yeah, I think so many people can relate to that. And I know we're going to find out, obviously, that scary steps actually do lead to great opportunities. So
Yes.
what was the point for you then when life started to change in life? Even though life, you were in your comfort zone, you felt safe, but life was good, you loved being a mum and life was just, I guess there was no challenges at that point before things started to really change for you. So what was the point when you when that started to change? What was it? At what point did you think, you
This is
know,
not going the way I thought.
yeah.
I'd say like my second son was really little, like probably a baby. And it was like, all right, why am I working? Like I was a real estate agent when I was pregnant with my first son. So I was in real estate. We were living off my income. My husband at the time was he was working, but it was like not really a career path, but like we were kind of like, well, maybe it will. So I feel like we were kind of just like wondering what was going to happen, but neither of us had like a super solid plan on career. And I mean, the economy wasn't great back then either. So
Mm-hmm.
people weren't doing as much as they are now. So, I mean, things were like not going great because I feel like I was very overwhelmed as a mom. I had two young boys that were always fighting and like monkeys in the house, and trying to show houses and, pay for everything. And it was just hard with them, taking them to school, taking them with me to work all the time was a lot. And so my husband at the time had shifted out of the career that he was in to buy a fast food franchise. And this was like supposed to be like, okay, like maybe now we have a plan. But like, I mean, the relationship still wasn't great. Like there was definitely times where I was like, this isn't going well, but you know how sometimes people don't really want to fix a lot.
Yeah.
So we kind of got into that, and that was going to be like his career. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to support it, and hopefully like he figures it out, and like that's all I can do. And
Mm-hmm.
then that's really when things got really upside down. So do you want me to go into that now or?
Yeah, yeah. I already know obviously the ins and outs of what's when it
Yeah.
started to go downhill. So yeah, yeah. If you would let the audience know, then yeah, what sort of transpired from that? So I know that he for a while it was going quite well his franchise, and then you started to take on the stress of that. Do you want to
Yeah.
obviously share as much as you're happy to share?
Yeah, of course. I mean, during that time, obviously, he was there a lot because he had to, get it on its feet. And I was like, that's the sacrifice that I'll take if this is what it's going to be. And
Mm-hmm.
then it just got worse and worse and worse. It was like super time demanding, and like our staffing was terrible. Like nobody wanted to work. Um, and because it was a corporate franchise, they have so many regulations that you have to file or
Mm-hmm.
follow. Otherwise, they'll fine you for like every little thing.
Yeah.
So I was being told that it was going really well, but again, I wasn't really there any more than just like stepping in if somebody missed their shift and like I had to like make food and wash dishes, which I honestly didn't have time to because I had the kids and I was still working and doing all that. So that like really dragged on for like a long time, which I think just caused more tension in our relationship because I was like, why is all of this on my plate? And still, like the reason of this was to, take some things off my plate, but it was almost just making it worse. So,
Mm-hmm.
long story short, about a year into that, I was just to the point where I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, this has been going on. Like, I can't be miserable any longer. Like, it was getting miserable. And it was
Mm-hmm.
like the thought of the future was just like, are we ever going to get out of this? Am I ever going to get out of this? Like, how, the future of my kids, all that. So, really, just like one step at a time, just progressively snowballed and got worse. And then when we finally decided to separate, he just never went into the restaurant again, which I didn't know that at the time. So when I went in there and I asked the staff, and they're like, oh, we haven't seen him in, months. And I'm like, what do you mean months? Like, I thought everything was going well. And then he's like, no, it hasn't been going well. We need to sell it. And I'm like, well, do we need to
Wow.
sell it because it's not going well because you're not there? Or like, do we just need to like clean it up a bit? Like, where is it at? And I didn't know at the time that it actually had been bleeding to death since day one, which I mean, I wouldn't know that. I wasn't in the accounts. I wasn't like, how would I know that?
Mm.
So then I really had to step in and take it over, which I didn't want to do. I didn't have time to do. I wasn't experienced to do it. I didn't even have like logins to accounts and, people like the corporate people. I didn't even have their contact info. So that was when things really got messy, and I was, we were separating, so I'm paying for attorneys. My son was starting kindergarten. I have the kids basically full time. I'm paying for all the bills on my own. I'm trying to work my job to cover all these things,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm being forced to go into the restaurant basically like 12 hours a day because we only
Mm-hmm.
had like two employees. And I was spending all my money on just keeping it open because if I didn't follow certain rules, then I was going to be fined. So it was like,
Mm-hmm.
no matter which way I turned, I was walking into a tornado. Like, didn't matter in any direction. Like, in court, in the restaurant, with anything. It was just awful for a long time. And it was like, waking up every day was just like, how do I get out of this? And it was like there was literally no way out because I'm at the timeline of the court system, which then COVID hit. So of course that dragged everything out. And on the timeline of corporate, which, they're supposed to be helping me, but they're really not. And it was just like, then we got robbed at gunpoint. And then I had an employee that had like a crazy meth trip and like destroyed the entire store. Like it was like, I'm not even kidding. Could have been a TV show of just like, what is going on in this woman's life? Like every day, I was just like, I don't even want to wake up and know what kind of bomb is going to go off in my face while I'm just trying to like survive and like handle as much as I can. And so that went on for at least 2 years, like 2 years of intensely going on. And this was all why, like, while like with divorce, obviously, like you're breaking up families and breaking up friendships. And like there was all this other like relational hell going on all at the same time. So that
And
was,
why
yeah.
did you need to take on the franchise? Is it because was it partly in your name, or did you just feel obligated to do that, or legally did you have to?
Legally, I had to because the franchise was actually purchased in an LLC,
Oh.
which my name was on. So we were
Mm-hmm.
both on the LLC together. So I couldn't just like let it fail. But I later found out that through the franchise, they actually make the individuals put their names on the document. So you can't actually, like some of the stuff was in the LLC, but the actual like franchise agreement was in
Mm-hmm.
our names. So technically we would both be on the hook to be sued by them if whatever
Wow.
happened. So I was really at their mercy. And it
Yep.
was just I couldn't do any which way I went. I was either going to owe somebody money or get sued for something or like have to file bankruptcy on something because if I closed, then I'm on the hook with the lease and I'm on the hook with the royalties. Like they estimate royalties for your sales every 2 weeks and they just automatically take it out of your account. So if I'm closed, but whatever I don't know how long the agreement is that I have to pay you royalties if I close. Like there's so many like unanswered questions and legal documents and I'm like going up against this massive like powerful industry. Like, how am I going to fight them? Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, even if I close, I'm going to have all these fines. That's like that's even hundreds of thousands of dollars that I've lost. Or if I keep it open and I just slowly bleed to death, the same amount of money, like it was like either which direction was terrible. And there was no like certainty of like, when will the bleeding end?
So what was going through your mind? I mean, I know you've kind of touched on it, but I mean, it sounds like you were at breaking point. You know I can't even imagine the stress that you must have been feeling at that point. But where did your head go? How did you think? How am I going to get out of this? What was Did you have a plan? Yeah, I'm just really intrigued to know where your head was at during all of this at that low point.
Right. I mean, 2 years is a really long time to have all of
Mm-hmm.
that on and like no
Yeah.
exit strategy. And no
Yeah.
matter what the exit, like, if I could make an exit strategy, I would have, but like I was at the mercy of corporate and the court. So it was like there was barely anything I could even do besides show up every day and like get what I could done,
Mm-hmm.
which was terrible. But I mean, I think my focus was just really the divorce was kind of like this will come to an end likely sooner than the restaurant will. But my main priority the whole time was the kids, even though it was horrifically stressful and like I wanted to shave my head like Britney Spears every day. But
Mm-hmm.
they were my main priority, just like making sure they have what they needed and just being there for what they needed regardless. That was kind of my one step at a time because that was my main priority, even like through the court or through whatever it was that happened to me. Like that was the only thing I cared about. It was like at this point, you can take all my money because it's just, I'm throwing it out anyways to this restaurant. I
Yeah.
just need them to be okay and like be the best I can for them. So
Mm-hmm.
that was really my main focus. The one thing at a time was focusing on them. And then once the divorce finally wrapped up after what seemed like forever, then I finally was like, oh my God, I can just focus on this restaurant now and how to get like financially reestablished because obviously through all of that, like we had to like liquidate all of our savings and like liquidate any investment accounts that we had to cover the $40,000 in attorney fees and then the hundreds of thousands of dollars flushed down the toilet at this restaurant. Do you know what I'm saying? So it was
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't even care about money anymore. I'd rather start over, but like I'm still like going down whenever the end of that was, which in a way, like COVID was horrible. That was definitely the nail in the coffin for the restaurant,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but it slightly helped me a little bit because I could bend the rules. Like they had so many franchise rules, and if I didn't follow them, I was fined like literally immediately. It was terrible. But with COVID and how there was so many different regulations on different areas of the world, I just had to tap out of some and be like, oh, we couldn't because COVID, or I can't buy that product because COVID. It's, you know what I'm saying? Because they made us carry all these extra products, and I'm like, we're not even selling those. So I'm wasting my money to carry this product that we don't sell, because if I don't have it, then I'm fined. But if I do have it, then it's wasted. So it was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I just kind of like started bending the rules on things, because I was
Right.
like, at this point, I'm losing money either way. So
Mm-hmm.
what are they going to yell at me? I guess they yell at me then. I didn't, there was nothing else to do. So I kind of just started bending the rules where I could.
Yeah. And then what was the point where you got out of that? So how did obviously we know that you don't have the franchise anymore. What happened with that? How did it finally come to an end? And how did it, tell us how it came to an end.
So I ended up having only one employee at the end, and he was like the best. He was like 62 years old. His name was Terry. And he was such a workhorse because he had kind of like that old school like work ethic. But he butted heads with people a lot. So even if I hired somebody else, like they had to go. So I was like,
Yeah.
whatever. We're a one man store at this point. And he kind of liked it that way because it was like his thing, which was
Mm-hmm.
not great. But I mean, it was honestly better than having several people that were terrible.
Mm-hmm.
So, and me and him jived really well. He was so loyal to me. He like would bring his lawnmower in the back of his G6. Like he had like a small car. He would bring his lawnmower in the trunk of his G6 and cut the grass there, because I was so behind on the rent that the
Mm-hmm.
landlord stopped cutting it, and it was like looked like a jungle. So he was so extra for me, but I did just like kind of let him do his thing, and it
Yeah.
was less of a headache on me. It wasn't being run amazing, but the headache of dealing with staff going to jail every other weekend and stealing and doing all this other stuff, it was like, I don't even care if you're selling ice cream at this point. Like, whatever. I don't even care. Just be
Mm-hmm.
there. It doesn't cause me a headache. And he just handled it. So I had him for probably like the last year and a half, just him and me on his own.
Mm-hmm.
And so the corporate would have like little regional offices that would manage like different franchises in that area. So they were supposed to be helping me this whole time, but even though they fined me a million times, but all of a sudden in COVID, they like vanished, all of them. And I'm like, what happened with this? Which turns out that they actually were like allowing these smaller ones to fail so they could buy them and then flip them. So there was a lot of lawsuits involved with that like I didn't dig into, because I was like, I don't need any more drama right now. But so that was going on, which kind of made me realize, okay, now I get it, why nobody was willing to really step in and help,
Mm-hmm.
as I'm like begging to like have anybody help me. So now I know why, because they were really more interested in just kind of letting it fail and doing themselves a favor.
Mm-hmm.
So I had someone that was going to buy it, but then when the little management group fell off the face of the earth, like 2 days before we were supposed to close on it, which I was selling it for like nothing compared
Sorry.
to,
Sorry.
oh,
It's okay. It's my phone. It's okay. It's my fault
oh,
for not putting it on silent.
so I was selling it for basically nothing for what I had paid for it, but I was just doing it to get out of the royalties, the lease, all those extra fines that were going to come afterwards. So I was selling it to him 2 days before closing. He backed out. This was after I paid a $5,000 transfer fee to corporate for them to transfer paperwork, which they never gave me back, even though they're the reason that he didn't want it anymore, because they weren't supportive. Um, that was really like I like almost lost my mind then, because I was just like, how I got so close. Like I was 2 days away from getting out of this hellhole and still like losing hundreds of thousands of dollars, but at least I was going to be free and I could actually like move on and do something. And so he didn't even care that he totally screwed me over. And then eventually I just decided to close it. So I closed it, and I kind of just like hunkered down to see what kind of storm was going to come in. And it was like, but at that point, corporate was very virtual. So like they used to have the big corporate office where everybody knew what was going on. Now that a lot of people are working from home, I feel like there was a lot of like things that fell through the crack.
Yeah.
So I feel like I kind of just like hunkered down and like waited to see what was going to happen, and I just closed it.
And so, and what were the repercussions of that then afterwards?
I mean, I definitely had to pay a lot of fines, but I
Mhm.
mean, they still will reach out to me sometimes, and I'm like, I feel like I'm still in hiding. That's why I'm not even saying the
Right.
name of the
Yeah,
franchise,
yeah.
because I feel like they're
Right.
gonna like come knock on my door and be like, you didn't, you forgot this," and I'm like, "Can you just leave me alone?" But I got
Mm-hmm.
really lucky because the landlord, if he would have come after me, so the way the lease was is the franchise has the lease with the landlord, and then I have a lease with them. So it was like a
Mm-hmm.
triangle. So I couldn't just be like, "Oh, I'm cool with him, I'm out," because they're actually the one on the lease.
Mm-hmm.
But because he, for some reason, was like, "I'm not going to screw you over," like, because he did see this whole thing, like, he talked to me about what was going on, and I was honest about it, and he kind of just like let me go. So if
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have that, like, this could still be just like misery.
Yeah.
But that was the one thing that I was like, thank God, that's my only thing I got lucky with.
And then is this with the point where you? So I was just looking at what we spoke about before. Is this the point where you sort of started to have, or were you already ready, sort of spiritual in that sense, or did you start to have a sort of transformation or awakening at that point?
Not yet. I mean, I grew up like going to church, obviously, and like
Mm,
when I had my kids pre the restaurant and all that, I would take them to like the MOPS thing
yeah,
where you would take
yeah.
moms of preschoolers at the church. We would do stuff like that. So I feel like I was pretty grounded in
Mm-hmm.
who I was and, yeah, my beliefs in that regard. But
Yeah.
then I feel like through all of that, how weird are we getting? Are we going there? Or do
Go
you
for it.
want to dig into it?
Yeah.
Okay. So during like the heaviest point in that,
Mm,
I went and saw a psychic medium for the first time, which
mm,
was so like not something I've ever done or would think of doing.
mm,
It sounded scary, but I was like, I literally don't even care if this lady just lies to me and says I don't even care what,
mm,
but just bring me any kind of peace right now. I don't even care if it's the most unbelievable thing she ever says and it doesn't even come true.
mm,
I don't care. Just like
mm,
give me any amount of peace right now because I'm living in this freaking hurricane
mm,
every day for so long. So I went and met with her, and she like that was insane. Like the way that she dug into that like really opened my eyes. And she did say to me like, "Hey, I know that you're like a church goer, and I feel like you're in this process of thinking like spirituality and Christianity or religion, they're two different things." But she's like, they go together. They're not like one or the other. And I'm like, okay. So I kind of like it opened my eyes to a lot of things, but it took me a minute to really like soak it in. Because I
mm,
think after all of that happened, it took me like 2 years to really digest the
mm.
trauma and like the what the
Yeah.
hell just happened. Because I was so used to like living in just like survival mode that you don't
Mm-hmm.
even realize how intense it is sometimes because you're living in it. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like I'm so desensitized to it, I think, because I mean, obviously there was so much other just terrible things that were going on at that time. I'm so desensitized to it because like I'm so used to it. Like it's my life. I lived it. And it was dragged on for so long. It wasn't like one bad day changed everything. It was 2 years of bad days.
Yeah.
So it was so normal to me. But then when I tell people this story sometimes, they're like jaw is dropping. Like, how did you get like what is happening?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it took me like 2 years to really digest that entire situation. And then that, like the lessons I learned out of that kind of like turned me in a new direction. And that's what kind of got me to open my mind more to spiritual things and like mindset stuff and like I guess possibilities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think when something like that comes along, which you could never have imagined, you had created your own little safe space, and you were content and life was good, and you could never have foreseen the 2 years that you were about to have. So I think
Mm-hmm.
almost it's like, I think sometimes in our darkest times, once we sort of start to come out of that and sort of claw our way back out, I think we sort of get a new lease for life. I think we start
Mm-hmm.
thinking, you know, yeah, I think like you just said, the possibilities ahead, and also your capabilities, what you've
Mm-hmm.
navigated. It's almost like, I don't know, a newfound strength. I think that I'm just talking from my own experience of really hitting that, going to that dark.
Yeah.
dark
Definitely. And I
place.
think just a lot of the things I learned out of that too was just like,
Mm,
if I would have known that's how that was going to go, I would have approached it completely differently. Not
mhm,
that I would have known because I didn't have like that experience, but like,
mhm.
so I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I feel like
No.
I got taken advantage of by corporate and I got taken
Mhm,
advantage of honestly by the court system because during all of
mhm,
this too, my attorney that I had, which I like literally handed him the easiest case ever, like, here's a home run. I've done like, I mean, you knew my resume. I was at everything. I did everything with the kids always. I never asked for money. I literally gave him a home run. And I feel like he just sat there and like let me take a beating that was completely unwarranted, that I didn't deserve, that was all lies,
mhm,
and he didn't do anything. And then after it was over, I found out like 2 months afterwards that he actually was getting debarred and losing his lawyer license for getting a DUI and sexually assaulting his clients. So he actually went to jail. So I was being misrepresented too. I'm like, how am I'm like giving you this, just begging you to help me, and
mhm,
you also just took advantage of me. And like, this is my life that you're dealing with, and you care more about saving face in the courtroom than
mhm.
the outcome of my life that I'm giving you to handle. Like, that really pissed me off because we'd be like in court and he would be like, you look hot. I'm like, I don't care, just win this, like get me out of this, like what are you doing?
Yeah.
And all he
Wow.
did was tell me what an amazing attorney he was, and then come to find out that is what he was doing at the same time. Like, he was going through that at the same time, and I didn't know. I feel like I probably could have sued him for not disclosing that information, but I was so traumatized of going to court at that point that I was like, whatever, he sucks. I don't even want to deal with it.
Mhm, mhm. So when did life start to get better then? Because life's good now. So obviously you were a realtor before, you're a successful realtor now. You're also a TV host. So how
Yep.
did all of that, was that something you manifested? How did that come about? And yeah, how did life start to get good again and get to a point where obviously the successful place you're at now?
Yeah, so I moved 2 years ago. I moved. So this all happened like 5 years ago. So
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago, I moved, and my kids started a new school district. It's like, I love this area. So I think just changing my surroundings out of like that was
Mm-hmm.
huge because it's just different, and there's different energy. It's just a different scene in different situations. So I want to constantly relive that. So that
Mm-hmm.
was a lot. And then I kind of realized that whatever I want out of life, I'm the only person that's going to get me there. It's not going to be some company. It's not going to be some contract. It's not going to be some, like, nobody's saving me.
Yeah.
Nobody. But I feel like that took me a long time to understand because I feel like everybody that you rely on or you hire for something, you're like, okay, they're going to get it done. And nobody got anything done except my guy that carried the lawnmower to the restaurant. So it's like I really had to learn what I wanted and where I wanted to be and how to get there. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, all right, well, if I can't rely on anybody else right now, I have to rely on myself because obviously I got through that. So I know I'm tough and I know I'm strong. So I have to figure out these new techniques to get me to where I want to be. So in order to grow my business, what do I need to do? So I started listening to podcasts and listening to books, and I actually still see that the psychic that I had seen, I see her like
Mm-hmm.
quarterly now. Not necessarily, she doesn't go like into crazy stuff with me, but she'll talk a lot about uh, like my career, or like if my kids are like in like emotionally struggling with something that I don't understand,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. So she has great insight. So I see her like quarterly now, which that is always fun. But one of my goals for the year, I remember writing them down in January, and I'm a super just like, I don't know, naturally motivated person.
Yeah, like a go-getter.
So yeah, so I'm like, if I know I'll do it. So that's why I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm gonna make this goal sheet for myself, and we'll see what happens. And I made it. It was huge. Like, it was huge. And one of the random goals on there, like, I have my sales goals, my finance goals, my fitness goals, whatever they are. Those are very specific. And then I just always throw like a random one that's just like, if I get to it, figure that out. And I wrote figure out how to manifest because I was like, what is manifesting? I don't even understand what it is. I don't get it. Is it praying? Is it daydreaming? Like, what is this? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wrote that down. And the goal that was next to it was read one book every month for the year. Because I'm always listening to podcasts, but a lot of times they're just like fluffy, whatever ones. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, all right, I can listen to a book on I'm going to listen to one on how to manifest. And I started the year out with that. And that really propelled everything like a huge transformation for my own mindset, but also for my business and just how I run my life daily, like on a daily
Mm-hmm.
basis. So that was really what, like, figuring out how to do that with a book and then kind of like taking each step in that direction, like snowballed it huge. And that has been insanely helpful for me. Like, I look back at my goals that I wrote in January, like it wasn't even that long ago, it's almost a year, and
Mm-hmm.
every single one I wrote down happened.
Mm-hmm.
And they were big goals. They were big. Like, I'm way over the sales goal that I put, and I'm like, okay, I put a pretty high sales goal, like, and it was like done. And I think that putting myself out there and marketing myself through what I learned through the manifesting and then other books that I read and just shifting my
Mm-hmm.
mindset to put myself out there on social media for my business and stuff like that really is what got me the TV show and got me a ton of business because of the exposure of it. So I had to learn how to not be in my comfort zone. And I learned that through the manifesting and through the books that I read and through the podcasts. And that is what made me kind of put that down, put all of that old stuff down
Yeah.
and really move forward.
What were your biggest takeaways for, from the books, the podcast about manifesting? What were the key points, do you think, that helped you manifest those goals?
Definitely writing things down helps. Like, a lot of them were talking about like journaling, which is like
Mm-hmm.
not normally my thing, but I like to do that for, like, if I have time in the morning, I like to do like 15 minutes or 10, 15 minutes of that just to like really know how I feel about something or what I want.
Mm-hmm.
So that was big. And then just like changing the way that we talk to ourselves was big. And I didn't realize that, like, I feel like we're also conditioned to have the same self-talk. And like life tells us to judge ourselves in certain ways and don't do that because then somebody's going to be upset about it. And it was like learning to stop listening to other people and stop being motivated by fear and just keep pushing toward, do the next thing in the right direction. 1% a day. If you do 1%, then eventually you'll get there, but you have to stop worrying about all the noise that's going on.
Yeah.
And that was huge for me because I've been living in like a war zone for so long. And it was like through the divorce, everybody's opinions on every little thing. And it's like, oh my God, that was a lot.
I second that about the baby steps. So yeah, sending the email and then, one baby step at a time. And I think you get more confident with each one. And, we're talking about being in your comfort zone because I've been there as well, taking the baby steps or wanting to stay in my comfort zone. But yeah, I think you get more confident with each step because it's not that scary. It's always the thought. What I say is it's not the unknown that's scary. It's leaving the known
Yeah.
because I mean, even now where I'm at now, and I've manifested a lot and like yourself, written goals, and they've all come to fruition. And I'm very comfortable right now. I could happily just not bother with any more goals. I'm quite happy to stay where I am. But yeah, so I know I'm now at the stage again where I have to, if I want more goals, I need to take that step out of my comfort zone. It never stops. If you want bigger and better, or you want more, or you want to invite more into your life, it does take a step out of your comfort zone into the unknown. But that's all
Mm-hmm.
that's scary. It's just leaving the known. It's okay to love
Right.
your life the way it is as well. But if you want change, if you want to invite something new, it does take a step into the unknown. I actually like to think, rather than thinking, oh my God, that's so scary, what about, oh my God, that's so exciting?
Yeah.
Just just switch it, just
Changing that thought
own
process.
it. Yeah, yeah,
I almost feel like now I feel weird if I'm comfortable. Like, I'm
yeah.
so used to not being comfortable now that I feel like I'm like
Mm-hmm.
wasting my time if I ever like take a day off. I'm like, I worked
Mm-hmm.
way too hard to get this momentum and to get where I'm at to like
Mm-hmm.
sit down and not do something today. Do you know what I'm saying? But I also think the more you get out of the comfort zone, the less you care about other people's judgment, other people's fear, whatever. Do you know
Yeah,
what I'm saying? It's like the first few times you do it, you're like, what's everybody thinking? Oh my gosh, what is someone? And then
absolutely.
after
Yeah.
that, you're like, I don't even care. Whatever.
And also, I think it's definitely, I had to overcome that fear of judgment, but you actually realize no one really cares. People are
Right.
actually so consumed with their own life that they're not really worrying about you. And if they have a thought or make a comment, they have soon forgotten about that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas that can really affect us, but we just need to remember that people really aren't thinking about us as much as we think they are, you
Right.
know? I think
Well, it's
that's
like any big news too. Like
mm,
what Jennifer Aniston and Brad Pitt broke up. It was like, oh my gosh, for like a week.
mm,
You know what I'm saying? And then everybody's like, I forgot they were together. So
mm-hmm.
I think it seems so huge to us, and then it holds us back and it keeps us like imprisoned to our potential
Mm-hmm.
because we're so scared of like what might go wrong
Mm-hmm.
instead of like, okay, even if I fail, it's temporary.
Mm. Mhm. I didn't even use the word fail. I think because people talk about, I mean, even people talking about, failed marriage or failed career, but I think, well, what does it take for it to be a success then? If someone's married for
Hmm
10 years, isn't that a success, even though it naturally came to an end? So
hmm
I actually take the word failure out of my vocabulary. I don't think we're failing. I just think we're learning and
hmm
growing. Um, so yeah, I think that is like you said earlier, the fear of failure. I think if you just take that away and it's not actually failure, it's growth or
Right.
learning.
Learning. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm necessarily scared of failure anymore because I think
Mm-hmm.
anything that I'm walking into is not going to fail as bad as what I
Yeah.
just got out of. So
Yeah.
that's like encouraging for me because it's not as terrifying.
hmm So what about, just before we end, I want to hear more about the TV show. How did that come about? How did you end up a TV host on, is it the American Dream Network? Is that right?
Yep. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So I was doing a lot more social media marketing just for real estate, which I
Mm-hmm.
hated doing beforehand because, like I said, I always grew up like stay in your little box, don't ruffle too
Mm-hmm.
many feathers, don't draw attention to yourself. Which, like, I don't know, I feel like naturally I'm just bubbly and I would be kind of in center of attention, but I kind of was like told don't do that, right? So I kind of just stepped into it and was like, I have to do this in order to market this the right way. So let's just try it, and if it sucks, then I won't do it anymore. But I'm gonna give it a shot. So I
Mm-hmm.
started making more or videos for real estate and just doing more on social media to market real estate. So I started doing that. But as I was doing that, people were like, I really like your outfit. What are you wearing? Whatever. So I started kind of cross marketing that with outfits and home decor. And then I became like an LTK creator. So I have an account on LTK now where I can market products and different styles through affiliate marketing. So I'm doing that now. So I kind of cross both platforms. So I'm like, cool, if you like to see cool outfits, then I'm still going to shove real estate in your face. So I'll just do both. So I
Yeah.
kind of was doing both of those, and it seemed like I was almost too wide. Like I wasn't niched down too much to like really brand it the way that everybody says you should.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody liked the versatility with what I was sharing. I was doing houses. I was doing outfits. I was doing renovations. I was doing, kids' football games. I was just doing my everyday life, which is not just one thing. But I was doing it a lot and a lot more than I was. Like, I remember when one of the books I read was like, you have to make a post every single day. I'm like, a whole post or just like a story? Like a post? I don't even have that much to say. So I was like, all right, I'm going to try it. So I started doing that, and I don't know, I think it's just gotten me so much exposure from like that and the clothes. And now the TV show actually reached out to me and said, would you like to do this TV show? It's focused on lifestyle and real estate in different communities throughout the US. So I was like, sure, I'll try it. So I did. I started that in July, and I just filmed my third episode. But that really opened a lot of doors for networking for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I have been super connected with like a lot of people all over the state who either want to be on the TV show because I can feature a business and a house in each episode. So I had a ton of people reach out and say, "Hey, I really want my business to be on this." But there's a strategy involved with it because I don't want to just choose, whoever wants it the most, because I'm also trying to leverage my business. So there's a lot of strategy involved with what business and what location I want to do for each episode. But
Mm-hmm.
by having that option there, I've been able to network with tons of different business owners and just other agents, and it's been just another way to get my foot in the door at a lot of places that I wouldn't have. So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of just been leverage for the next step. It's kind of like leveled up the next thing for me, which on the second episode I got actually like it turned out being a $3.2 million listing that closed. I mean, I had it pending in 12 hours. So it was like, and that was 4 hours away from where I work. Like, I don't even live up there. So it's just been packaging what you have right and just not being
Yeah.
afraid to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it just shows you, for anyone listening, that, putting yourself out there and the opportunities, you weren't looking for that necessarily, but by putting yourself out there, which I know is scary,
Hmm.
but the opportunities that can come from that, yeah, I think you're a great example of, yeah, it's scary, but there's
Yeah.
actually possibilities and opportunities for you. So what does the future hold then? So what are you manifesting in the future? What do you want in your personal life?
Yeah, so right now, I mean, we're wrapping up the year, so I'm
Mhm,
gonna start in my goals here soon for
mhm,
2025.
mhm,
But right now I'm really focused on, I mean, leveraging the TV show the best I can, but I still have like some doors open that I'm kind of just
mhm,
leaving open. I'm not
mhm.
really actively trying to pull things out of it because I'm just leaving them open for like the
Yeah.
next side thing to come in because I like real estate and I want to keep going with real estate. And I think I've grown so much this year that
Mhm.
I like being on this like wavelength of, momentum for that. So I'm definitely going to keep going forward with that. I'm so excited for 2025. I feel like it's going to be even bigger than like way bigger than this year
Yeah.
just because I put so much time in and you have to put the time in before you see what comes out of it. And even though it was kind of a quick turnaround for me, I think next year is going to be huge. So I'm really excited about that. And I have these doors open and I'm kind of like, I don't know what's coming in them yet, but
Mhm.
I'm kind of just like, I'm kind of playing with them still to see
Yeah.
what other thing could maybe stick that's a little bit bigger than just like the TV show or affiliate marketing, something like that.
And is there anything in particular that you want that's like a non-negotiable that you think I'm going to have that one day, either in your personal life or your in business?
I'm gonna have that. I mean, I guess I've never put in my goals like this is my one thing that I need, but I
Mhm,
am working on like in my head, I'm ready. I want to move again, not from in
mhm,
a different area, but just in a different. I just want a different house that will kind of fit our lifestyle more. I mean, this one's been great, but I want something that's a little bit, we need a little bit more space. So that's kind of on my radar. So this one has been a perfect, like, in between step, like coming out of one thing and this has been perfect and we've loved it here. It's been great, but I'm excited to like level up to the next one. So
yeah.
I'm thinking that's going to be maybe in the next 2 years.
Mhm,
So I guess that's my one thing that I'm like, I'm getting there.
yeah.
I got to
Yeah.
figure out how and see what these other doors are going to bring to me.
Yeah. And I always think that's a good idea to have your goal in mind, but be open to how it comes to fruition, because we can
Hmm.
block opportunities when we think, okay, I need to do it this way, and then that step and that step. We can actually be blocking off things that want to come in or people that want to come in and help us get to that goal and reach, for that to come to fruition. So yeah, I think that's just I always say, when I'm making goals, keep that in sight, but just be open and surrender to how it comes to be, and just know that
Hmm.
it will.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we have a plan like, hey, this is where I want to be and this is how I'm going to get there. And then we end up there, but then when you look back, you're like, that is not how I thought I was going to get here.
Yeah,
And a lot of times it is
yeah,
like
it
through other
really is.
relationships or networking or opportunities that
Mhm,
don't align with anything that you thought would get you there.
mhm.
But I think that's
Yeah,
actually the most exciting part because it's like, oh, this is
I,
weird.
I, I
I wouldn't
agree.
have ever planned
Yeah,
this as well. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I agree. You just never know you never know who you're going to meet on the journey or what the journey is going to be, and I think that's exciting rather than, I think it can be hard because it's almost like you're letting go of control. But
Hmm.
like, just try reframing that. I was saying about that being scary. Actually, just reframe that to that's exciting.
No, I know
And
what you mean because it's like I just say yes to whatever it is. I mean, as long as it
yeah,
seems like the right thing for me because I don't
mhm,
know. I can't control how I get there, but I can control what I do every day and what I spend my
yeah,
time and energy into. So I think, yeah, a lot of it this year has been me saying yes to everything. I've said I'm the yes girl this year. I've said yes to like
mhm,
literally everything, even it has no idea. Like my mom is like, "Why are you doing that?" I'm like, just wait," and then I do it, and
mhm,
then whatever it is happens, and she's like,
yeah,
"Oh, I had no idea." So it's like other people
mhm,
don't see it for that either. Like I'm sure there's so
yeah,
many people that I know that are looking at me like, why are you like what is the purpose of all of these different things that you're doing? But then like it all comes together in the end and it's like that's why I said yes to these things. You know what I'm
mhm,
saying? So it's like
yeah,
it's nice to have control over myself and my effort, but I also like leaving the door open.
Yeah. Yeah. So where can people come and watch what you manifest next year, and what happens for you in the next coming years? What's the best platform for people to come and follow you and watch your journey?
So my best platform that I'm on most is Instagram, and my handle is just Brittany Racine _. And then I'm also on Facebook. I don't really TikTok a whole lot, but yeah, Facebook at Brittany Racine or Instagram Brittany Racine _. And then American Dream TV is on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Prime. It's on basically all the streaming platforms. You can find it on there. So
We'll leave all the links below so people can easily come and find you then.
awesome. Thank you.